In this special briefing, we're going to take a look at exactly what's going on in the Middle East right now, and we'll also be looking at the macro cycles behind it, and finally we'll finish with a forecast on crude oil. Now, subscribers of the Market Timing Report received this email as a special alert from the Market Timing Report on the Thursday, the 26th of February. That's Thursday, just the day before at 2100 UTC. That's 9 p.m. UK time, or 4 p.m. if you're in New York. So people were forewarned. And basically what we said in here was the following. Let me just highlight this. We basically said that cycles connected to the United States, Iran and Israel all peak on February the 27th, with elevated pressure extending through to Monday the 2nd of March. So this is a key important point. We also said this alignment creates a clearly defined high-risk geopolitical window. The probability of significant escalation, including military action involving Iran, is materially elevated during this period. And multiple financial instruments are also registering cycle turning points on the 27th of February. What does that mean? Well, for traders and investors, people in the markets who follow our timing information, all these timing cycles are also coming together with geopolitical cycles. So this was a very important turning point. Now, regardless of which news agency you look at, we know that on the late night 27th, GMT 28th, Israel and America launched attacks on Iran and Tehran, and whichever way we look at it, we can see that this has escalated. There have been counterattacks from Iran, and as we can see, in fact, right now, even this is just breaking right now, Iran launches US carrier attack on US carrier. That wasn't even breaking when I started this video just a few minutes ago. So the clear point is that there is an awful lot going on. Let's zoom out now to the bigger picture, and here's Flight Radar 24. You can see all the airspace around Iran, and basically the UAE and everything is closed. Now, this has significant ramifications, just zooming out a little bit more, as it were, because remember, Yemen is kind of like hostile territory as well there. So there is only this area here over Saudi that's being used, and there are a limited number of aircraft going through Afghanistan and Pakistan. But remember, they also declared war in this geopolitical window on Friday the 27th. So that airspace could be closed at any time. So Western-friendly airlines are avoiding all this airspace here because there's always a risk of stray missiles. And everything is now clustered into this very small gap because, of course, Russian airspace, Ukrainian airspace is all hostile as well. So this is a very, very big issue in logistics. And not only that, if we now look at, I think this is Marine Tracker, marinetimer.com. This is the Strait of Hormuz right here. And basically, Iran was threatening to stop all shipping going through there. The red arrows are the tankers, and there are no oil tankers really. There's only this one here that's moving right now. These are cargo, container vessels and things like that. So they have, at this moment in time, clearly nobody's moving anyway, but this is creating a huge restriction, so there'll be severe ramifications for oil prices on this one. How can you be prepared for all this information? By using long-term cycles, we can do exactly that, and this is what we had our clients set up for and prepared for. Back on the 8th of January, we released our Market Timing Report Year Ahead Edition, and there we covered at length all the cycles that were coming in on Iran based on very long-term periods, 36-year cycles, 26-year cycles, and furthermore. But I could see this escalating. So in the February edition of the Market Timing Report that came out on the 29th of January, I did a special piece there pointing out how the 45-year cycle was very important for Iran. And January 1981 saw the release of the American hostages that had been held under this regime when Jimmy Carter was president, and it was only when Ronald Reagan was inaugurated with the prisoners released, that was held there for 444 days. And this was really clear. So we're within just a couple of weeks, of this, 4 weeks of this cycle. But what does this tell us? This told us that at this point there was a degree of thawing of relationships, and Iran moved slightly towards the West. That was 45 years ago. Now, we know these 45-year cycles work. They work in markets. They work in geopolitics. Not only that, if you double that up and you go back to the 90-year pattern back in 1936, right, 90 years ago, there was significant modernization under Reza Shah Pahlavi. Now, he was the father of the Shah of Iran and the grandfather of the guy who's been stirring things up right now, trying to get the West in. And what happened 36 years ago? They brought this notion in that they didn't want to be so traditional. They banned the Islamic veil, the hijab, in public. And this unveiling policy was aimed to westernize society. So again, the 90-year cycle is suggesting that we are seeing a move towards westernization and a release from the theocracy. So all these cycles were telling us that this regime was definitely about to fall. So what does all this mean? This is quite critical because all parties have known this was coming. It's been building up for ages. That means there's been preparations and plans. But probably what was not expected was the way that the surrounding Middle Eastern countries who've been supportive of Western interests have suddenly been attacked by Iran. So we've seen all these nations such as the United Arab Emirates, so that's Abu Dhabi, Dubai, the Dubai airport's been hit, the Burj has been hit, Bahrain has seen hotels destroyed. I was talking to a dear friend of mine in Dubai just an hour ago, and he said he reckons that, or at least they were counting them, 150 missiles coming towards them, and that was about 5 hours ago. He said nothing had happened in the last 3 hours, and that was just before I started this briefing. So this is ongoing. All these other countries are involved. What's the big picture here? Well, I think there's several things to consider. What are these nations going to do, and what's it all about? I don't think they were expected to be drawn into all this. First of all, let's look at America. America is seen here as the aggressor by starting this because of the nuclear weapons and supporting Israel. I think this time, obviously, these nations have had time to prepare. I think there is a definite risk that there are Iranian sleepers back in the present regime, or the regime that's about to topple. As you know, the cycle suggests this was going to topple, and it will do, and it will open up towards the West. But in the meanwhile, in this transition point, there's a very strong risk of homeland security being challenged with terrorism. I'm not sure if it'll be the same magnitude as 9/11, but I think these are things that have been underestimated because all sides have had time to consider. Now, what happens to these lesser nations that can't really support themselves without, they obviously have money, they have firepower, Saudi's been attacked as well. What are they going to do? Are they suddenly going to say, right, we've had enough. We've had enough of Iran. We all join in, and they all join in the effort to remove this regime? Or is the opposite going to happen? Is there going to be a mass polarization? And are these nations going to walk away from supporting the Western interests of, say, America? It's notable that a lot of European countries haven't been involved. Who's the big winner in all this right now? Well, this is a bit of an outlier, but I think this is really setting a further degeneration and a breakdown of international relations in the Middle East. And I think the biggest winner here probably is Israel. And I think Israel is setting its sights on expanding throughout and, of course, controlling oil within the region. If you're finding this information useful, I ask you to subscribe to our channel right now here on YouTube, and also check out markettimingreport.com, where you'll not only find out details of the monthly market timing report, but all the other excellent products we have to help you get the advantage in trading and investing. Now, I promised I'd give you my thoughts on what lies ahead with crude oil, and here I want to share some of our proprietary modeling patterns. Now, all this information comes down from the market timing report and our system behind it, which has our forecasting histogram systems, our profit-finding Oracle histogram systems, which looks at the DNA of the markets. We've been developing it for over 35 years and have run professional money very, very successfully with this. This is just one of the layers. The actual key dates are given in the report, the market timing report. But what we do here, and this is a fairly simple model, I'm going to just share this one with you, is that we stack the decennial patterns on for the last, what we've got here. And what we see when we stack them up, looking back 10, 20, 30, 40 years, we see something pretty interesting that we see really. Our forecast for 2026 suggests sort of lows around this area. And, by the second week of February that we're seeing lows. And then if you see the majority of these cycles, the blue line is the forecast line. Actually, let me just explain a few bits and pieces. Sorry, I'm getting carried away here. The blue line is the forecast line. And that does suggest that this heads up really in towards the third week of April. So that's something to be aware of there. And by the way, you see we end the year a lot higher. That's a forecast. It's a very crude model, but it gives us a roadmap because most people have no roadmaps. We then apply our histograms, which I'm not going to bore you with now. You can find out more about that at markettimingreport.com. But the key points are, this does suggest we're in for a sharp move up, and it might run for several weeks. There is one word of caution, and this is actually covered with specific dates in the March report that we just released. There is a potential high coming in the third week of March. So that is the forecast on crude oil. So I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and as I say, please subscribe to the channel and come and join us at the Market Timing Report. Thank you. Now, regardless of which news agency you look at, we know that on the late night 27th, GMT 28th, Israel and America launched attacks on Iran and Tehran. And whichever way we look at it, we can see that this has escalated. There have been counterattacks from Iran, and as we can see, in fact, right now, even this is just breaking right now, Iran launches US carrier attack on US carrier. That wasn't even breaking when I started this video just a few minutes ago. So the clear point is that there is an awful lot going on. Let's zoom out now to the bigger picture, and here's Flight Radar 24. You can see all the airspace around Iran, and basically the UAE and everything is closed. Now, this has significant ramifications, just zooming out a little bit more, as it were, because remember, Yemen is kind of like hostile territory as well there. So there is only this area here over Saudi that's being used, and there are a limited number of aircraft going through Afghanistan and Pakistan. But remember, they also declared war in this geopolitical window on Friday the 27th. So that airspace could be closed at any time. So Western-friendly airlines are avoiding all this airspace here because there's always a risk of stray missiles. And everything is now clustered into this very small gap because, of course, Russian airspace, Ukrainian airspace is all hostile as well. So this is a very, very big issue in logistics. And not only that, if we now look at, I think this is Marine Tracker, marinetimer.com. This is the Strait of Hormuz right here. And basically, Iran was threatening to stop all shipping going through there. The red arrows are the tankers, and there are no oil tankers really. There's only this one here that's moving right now. These are container vessels and things like that. So they have, at this moment in time, clearly nobody's moving anyway, but this is creating a huge restriction. So there'll be severe ramifications for oil prices on this one.